Thanks, Grant. All right, good morning. So what if we all became more curious? Would we get better results? That's my intention today, is to spend some time with you all and help you answer that question. If we were more curious, will we get better results? You should have a sheet, which we're going to use today, in front of you. If you don't have that sheet, just raise your hand and we'll get one over to you. Everybody got one? All right. And what we'll be walking through today is this path of curiosity, driving deeper questions, stronger connections, and improving your results. So I start off, this is my son, Dyson. This is a few years back, and around this time, I walk into his college apartment to get a glass of water. I spot a countertop camouflaged with dirty dishes. What can I not find? A clean glass. I look at my son. Man, you need to do some dishes. That night, we are disconnected. All I'm thinking about, this place is a mess. The next time I come, those dishes are still there. Instead of making statements, I get curious and ask questions. Dyson, what's going on? How are you doing? Dad, I'm just kind of hanging on. I'm stressed out at school. I'm still upset about breaking up with my girlfriend. Things are not good. I could use your help. So I respond with, son, I can see this is hard for you. And I can see you're doing your best. Wanting him to be seen, heard, and valued. And I followed up with, what's in the way of doing your best now? How can I help? By working on my own skill to get curious and ask questions. We start to build that dialogue and get connected on what good looks like. And when we're connected, we get results. That result, a night of connection with my son, priceless. Because how you show up impacts on how people feel. And how you make them feel determines the extent to which they can engage with you. And feelings do matter. Because our emotions can drive how we connect with people and how they can engage with us and how they make us feel. So you think about dirty dishes. I don't know what your dirty dishes are, but maybe you have some, right? Maybe there's something in your personal life that you're focused on. Because the dirty dishes were never the real problem. What Dyson needed was connection. And that's what we often miss because we're busy, right? We want to clap our hands and move on to the next task. And we get focused on this. We just want the dishes clean. Dude, this place is a mess. And then just kind of by sitting back and really saying, like, how am I impacting this moment with my son, right? How much am I just judging, right? And the opposite of curious, I find sometimes, is just judging. And just being able to connect and be able to say, you know what? The dirty dishes are like a symptom. But what's really going on behind here? And when we get connected on what good looks like, it's unstoppable. So on your sheet, this is our first gap because we're solving this overall problem of disconnect. And my showing up gap is one of my favorites. Because how we think we show up versus how others see us. How we think we show up versus how others see us. And that's our first area you can fill in. Because our intentions don't always match other people's perceptions. We wake up in the morning, great intentions. And often you can come home at the end of the day, and people may not have received those intentions as their perceptions, right? Because they're going to choose how they see us. And we have more control of that than what you would think. This showing up gap, this happened to me a long time ago, looking a little younger in that picture, running a manufacturing plant. Do you guys have any truth tellers in your lives? Like maybe someone that would tell you something you don't want to hear or believe? Any truth tellers in your lives? Maybe at home? So I'm running a manufacturing plant. I get a call from corporate, got to get some information. I bring in all the supervisors and engineers into a room, talk about what we need to do, how to do it, what good looks like. I even told them some of the why of why we need to get it done. I'm using all my great training and leadership skills, feeling pretty good. I walk back to my desk, start working on a month-end financial report. My executive assistant rushes in. You really pissed those guys off. Kind of like, what are you talking about? Like I just went in there and I used all these skills and told them the why and the what. She's like, I don't know, but I can see they're pissed off. I can see that you didn't recognize it, and I thought you'd want to know. Walks out, leaves me sitting there alone, wondering what to do. So I go to the shop and I ask a supervisor, how's it going? He's like, you really want to know? We plan to have a great start to the day, which we did until now. You walk in, do all your talking, throw us in different directions, and we lose 10% production because of it. I now know I need to be curious. The curiosity, the questions, the dialogue, overall communication. The answers were in the room all along. We won't hear them if we're the only one talking. I was doing all the talking. I was just telling. I wasn't curious. And I can't get any feedback or see how my impact lands or how I'm showing up if I don't get any feedback. And that's a monologue. Because a monologue is one person expressing their own ideas and wants aloud. So at your workplace, raise your hand. Are you getting any monologues? Does that sound familiar? Have you heard of a monologue before? Maybe you're working with people here, you don't want to raise your hand. Okay, I get it. Because they're going to think, oh yeah, they're going to know I'm talking about him. But often, for me, the beauty was I realized it was me, that I was running this monologue. And when we get connected on what good looks like and we have a conversation, we build this dialogue, we got everybody back in that room and there was great conversation, great questions, prioritization, and they had a great result at the end of the day. All I needed to do was step back and understand how I was showing up and what they needed. So I just want you to kind of think about, maybe there's someone in your life that you may have a showing up gap. That's kind of hard, I know, kind of the truth teller. But this is just for yourself. And I say, on your page, just kind of think of, if you can think of one person, maybe personal or work-wise, and just put their initials down. This is just for your own benefit, right? This is just something that programs your brain to maybe remember. Put those initials down if you can think of someone that you may have a showing up gap. And by the end of this, we're going to maybe leave some ideas on how you might be able to close that gap. Have a little fun. So we often, because we're so excited about tasks, we run this monologue. And then dialogue, that's where there's two or more people talking about solving a problem or an idea, going back and forth and talking about what good looks like to get to some type of outcome. That sounds like a pretty good solution for the showing up gap. Dialogue. And it's the dialogue that starts to build that connection, right? Because it starts with curiosity, you start with deeper questions, and you build connection through that dialogue. And you have some better understanding when you're coming from that curiosity and you're getting those results. So, I told you that we would get some action going here. We're going to do a quick exercise. At your tables, the people you're at, or join a table. I just want you to think about, there's this person. It's like a hypothetical person, and it's someone in your life that this table knows, and that you were close to. And now there's a disconnect, some type of a divide. You know how we have those relationships, things are going well, and all of a sudden, we feel a little bit more distant from that person. And we may just say, the judgment mind will automatically kick in. But if we're intentional, that curiosity mind might say, I wonder what's going on. Something seems awkward, seems more distant, whether that's a friend or someone at home. What questions could you ask, coming from curiosity, if you have a divide in someone in your relationship, to create some conversation about what could this divide be causing? And uncomfortable maybe, but we got to get, often we're uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And so days that have a little bit of fun and have a little bit of uncomfortableness. So we're going to do this for 5 minutes. Here's what I'm not good at, is shushing and trying to get you back. I can usually get people talking. I have a harder time getting people to stop talking. So all I'm going to do is raise my hand at just less than 5 minutes. When I raise my hand and you see me raise your hand and stop talking, because we're going to keep moving here. And then we'll know it's time to stop talking. So I'll raise my hand. If you can raise your hand. Anybody raise your hand? You got to raise your hand. Okay, so that's going to be the symbol. Then we can all see it, and then there's nobody making noises trying to quiet everybody. Okay, someone in your life, think of some questions. I'll do a debrief in less than 5 minutes, and I'm going to ask some people, some brave souls at the table, to say, what questions could you come up with? Talking to someone that may have a divide in your relationship. We're going to start now. Have some fun. That's 5 minutes. Good. All right. Okay. Let's try it. All right. How about some questions? Who came up with a couple of questions you're feeling courageous to share today? I heard some good questions back there. Questions? Who can share some of the questions that came up? Right here.
A couple of ours. Did I do something to upset you? Another one was, hey, I've missed you. What's going on with you and your family?
Did I do something to upset you? Hey, I've missed you. What's going on? Love that. Just start that conversation. Anybody else feeling courageous? Any questions that came up with?
I oversimplified things, but I just thought, just simply saying, I feel like there's been some sort of divide between us as of late. Are you feeling the same way?
I feel like there's some type of divide between us as of late. Are you feeling the same way? And Matt, to your point, it really is the simpler. The simpler you can make it, the less weird it is, right? It's just simple. And if we can do that, then it just starts that whole conversation. It's just being willing to be a little more curious, a little bit vulnerable, right? And I love how you said how I feel. Because when you say, this is how I feel, then you're not wrong. Because how we feel is not wrong. Now when we say, hey, you've been distant lately, that doesn't work as well. So that's a great question. I love that. One more. Give me one more. One more question. There we go.
Maybe not a question to Deborah. That she had someone that she thought they should get together and go out and eat.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not over the phone. You just say, hey, let's get together and talk it over.
Oh, singing to my heart. Is that connection, right? It's just that connection of like, hey, maybe we just need to see each other, right? And sometimes it's just the time apart and there's actually not anything. There is no showing up gap. The only showing up gap is I just don't see you enough. That's a great point. Love that. Thank you. So it's Thanksgiving's coming up here in the U.S., and this is my this is back in Canada, but this is some of our family get-togethers. And as you get into Thanksgiving and you have these connections, and Christmas comes up so quickly here after Thanksgiving, I love it. And I'm standing there, and there's a woman sitting down in a blue jacket. That's my mom. And my mom and I have some disconnect often through our lives. And you still love each other, but then you have this disconnect. So that's just something that I've used a lot at home, is this showing up gap. Like, how much am I driving the disconnect between her and I? And then, so just some questions that I ask that maybe can help you, and you can write these down. You got some down on your sheet, but I'll just say, you know that feeling when you're talking to someone, and all of a sudden, like, you get that feeling in your stomach, like this conversation's not going kind of the way I wanted to. You get that feeling? And then that's your cue. That's your cue to say, good time to be curious. Because what do we normally do when a conversation starts to go sideways? We keep talking, right? Because we want to get our point out. Or maybe we just exit. And we exit that conversation. So just by saying, like, hey, Mom, how's this landing with you? How are you feeling about this? I'll just say, like, what are you thinking right now? I'm thinking that you're annoying because you keep on telling me to drink more water, or whatever that conversation might be. But on your sheet, you have something you can use at work. You know, are we connecting on this topic? Is this conversation helpful? Because remember, if you're talking, it's not for you, right? You already know the information that you're saying. So it's for the other person, just asking, is this conversation helpful? And how am I making you feel? It's the F word, the feeling word of this, like, how am I making you feel? Seems simple, but that just might be just that whole shift in the conversation. And it's just glorious on the impact that we can have in shifting where a conversation is going in how we're showing up. So that's our first gap to this problem of disconnect. And the second gap on your page is the expectation gap, expectations. So this is the space between what we expect others to do versus what others believe is expected. What others believe, what we expect others to do versus what others believe is expected. So going much back further in time of manufacturing, I was working at a manufacturing plant in Canada making cars at a very young age. And have you ever had someone like get so angry at you in a conversation that they start to physically show anger? So what I've been told is that I have this vein that starts to come out from the top of my head down here. And it's like, okay, Trevor's vein's popping. I may be trying to hide my emotions, but the vein doesn't hide. Other people I've had, just their face getting red, right? There's these different cues when the conversation's starting to go the wrong way. So it's the early 90s. I'm straight out of business school. And my boss, Tom, is standing in front of me. Now imagine someone doing this. Imagine your boss doing this while he's talking at you. I'm thinking he's going to eat me alive. I'm scared. So it's this hot August Friday night, the rattling of the steel conveyor with the seats slowly coming down to the car. Tom, my boss, standing in front of me, who's responsible for this Ford Motor Company 2.6 million square foot plant operation, which is not running, shut down. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Like, what? I didn't go to business school for this moment. And just like, what's going on? I just don't want to be here right now. So I can't remember what exactly Tom said. And that line did get back up and running in a few minutes, thank goodness. It was the longest few minutes of my life up until then. And years later, like 30 years later, and I'm still thinking about that moment. What drives a good man with good intentions to go on a rant when I was already stressed out? So, for years, I just, I kind of look back and blame Tom as a bad guy, right? Like, after all, I was younger. I was doing my best. A lot of this was out of my control. It's just manufacturing. No, it's not. And the more I thought about it and reflected on this expectation gap, it's like, what did I own in that situation? Tom went from having a decent night to his plant being down, not knowing. Because these extreme events can drive extreme emotions. And that's the time that we have the least amount of control in how we react, let alone even thinking about responding. And here I am thinking, well, I can't bother Tom, my boss, about work. So that wasn't a really good reason. But that did go through my head. It's like, yeah, I'm a young guy here. I don't want to bother Tom. He's looking after the whole plant. But like, did I ask for help? Did I ask for advice? That whole excuse of just not calling him, it really didn't land. So the expectation gap can go in both directions. And what I really learned is that I own much more of that and those opportunities, and we all do. And that's why with this whole work that we do on building connection, it starts with ourselves. Because it's easy to say, yeah, Trevor, I need you to come in, help fix those guys over there. Over here, we're good over here. But it's usually all of us, right? We all have a part in it. And I think if we can kind of like work on that expectation gap and really kind of be curious about am I asking the right questions? Because this is really what's driving that big problem of disconnect. Because the disconnect, it causes these moments of frustration and confusion. And then we just continue to muddle around in this gap between what leaders expect versus teams understanding what is expected. And from the top to the shop, the problem of disconnection gets in the way of our results. Results comes from conversations, deeper conversations between two people of what good looks like. And those conversations build dialogue and create connection. And that connection gets us the results. Connection is the power between two people when we feel seen, heard, and valued. Connection is being seen, heard, and valued. That's where the power comes in. Because when we can get connected, we know what good looks like because we've had that conversation. We've had that harder conversation. I understand it. Like, if we're this disconnected, there's got to be some information that you have that I don't have. So let's have a conversation. And then how we get there is curiosity. And the curiosity is the path, because when you come with that intention of curiosity, you'll ask the right questions. When someone asks you a question, you can usually tell where it's coming from. Is it coming from a good place, or is it coming of a place of judgment? And this is what the curiosity has the power of, right? We have to be intentional to let go of that judgment, and then just come in and be a little bit more curious with that conversation. Because what happens sometimes, when we have performance issues, right? We start to sometimes get more judgmental. Why is this important? Because hold on a minute. Trevor, we pay these people. We should be able to just tell everybody what to do, right? They get paid to do this. Well, there's a problem with that. 75% of manufacturing workers report being disengaged at work. It's making it one of the least engaged industries. I'm a manufacturing guy. I love manufacturing. I'm here today because I'm excited because it doesn't need to be this way. And I'm sure construction, warehousing, we're going to be not too far off here. They're fantastic industries. And when we get that disconnect, we lose that engagement. The answer is not just to separate ourselves from the problem, it's actually to lean in. And so, I think about Evan. Evan's a young leader. He's an engineer, and he's promoted to lead a team of engineers. How do you think that works? There's not a lot of feelings being talked about at this point. So I'm working with Evan. He calls me. He's hot. He's like, Trevor, I gotta talk to my engineer. He is lighting fires left and right with people. I've talked to the CEO, I've talked to HR. We've had enough. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to tell him what we need done, I'm going to tell him not to do this, and if not, we're starting a PIP, a performance improvement plan. I'm like, Evan, I'm like, hold on. Let's just slow down here for a minute. So, performance improvement plans, I did some research on them. So I call them parting in position because I read that they're really good if you want to fire someone and you want to avoid a discrimination lawsuit. So I'm like, hold on, let's just talk about this. Evan cools down, right? Evan cools down, we start having some conversations. And we're like, let's be curious. So he goes and he talks to his engineer. This one that they're going to start the PIP on, they put the PIP on hold, thank goodness everybody gets on board. He asks 3 questions. He just starts with, what's going on? Engineer. He says, I don't know, man. I'm frustrated. I'm trying to help. I got great ideas. I go to the floor, I'm working with these people. They get upset at me, and then I get upset at them back. And then I leave the conversation frustrated, and I'm frustrated. Well, what do you want to do? He said to the engineer. Well, he says, I don't want to continue this. Like, I want something different. I'm not exactly sure what to do, but I know what I want. I want to be able to go to the floor. I want to be able to go to the other teammates, have conversations about ideas on how to make this place better. And then if I do get upset, I don't want to respond that way. Okay. How can we help? He says, I don't know. I need some different tools. Like, I need some different ways on how to manage this. Like, I don't know, maybe some coaching, maybe some training, maybe some mentoring, but I need some help. So here the engineer, he knows the problem. He knows what he wants. He doesn't know how to get there. That's our job, is to be curious and help people to get from where they are to where they want to be. And we don't have to write them up as the first step, especially going to a performance improvement plan. Because when you're really curious and you dive into it, you don't need to do that. So the beautiful thing here is with the engineer is that you're not telling him to do something different. You're having some conversation because it's the dialogue, back to the dialogue, that changes our thinking. It's not us telling us 5 times. It's not me telling you to do the dishes 5 times. That doesn't get the dishes done. But if I can ask, like, why aren't the dishes done? What's going on, man? Why are you frustrated? And we kind of see what's beneath that. We start to close that expectation gap. And Evan and this engineer both get promoted on in this company, right? And it's just being that curious, being open, and just having a different approach. So that curiosity and that expectation gap closes. Because in each situation I look at is that, we walk into a room today, I got here early, Leslie was setting me up, great host here, it was just an awesome place, and more people came in the room, and the room got like to just a friendly temperature, right? Like it's just like it's feeling good, it's great energy here, what a great event to put on here today. I could just feel it became more positive. Now at work, sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. And because there's a thermometer here for the temperature, right? And it controls our temperature. And as each person comes in to a situation, we're taking that temperature in the room up or we're taking it down. And when you have a problem at work or at home, it's like a small fire smoldering, right? And I look at when you walk into that conversation, you got 2 buckets with you. One's got gas, one's got water. So which one are you bringing in? So for me, in the water, that's my curiosity, right? That's my curious, like, hey, this seems like a pretty tough situation here, guys. What's going on? What are you struggling with? What's in your way? Then you got the gasoline over here. Woo! Pretty hot mess over there. That sounds like a real problem. You guys got yourself in a real mess. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it that way. It's too bad you did this in the past. Okay, that's helpful. Now I'm more frustrated. Now I'm going to start arguing with you. I even forgot what the problem was. So it's just really having that mindset of every time you enter a conversation, you are shifting it from neutral to positive or neutral to negative. So I'm just excited for you guys to bring more water to these fires today because we got a whole room of people that could be firefighters for these problems today, bringing your curiosity. So that's the expectation gap. So you got some questions there, what's going on? What does good look like for you? How can I support? These are all areas that we can kind of start to bridge that space. So just summarize then, we got this overall problem of disconnect, connecting the top to the shop. Our solution is connection. How we get there is curiosity. We know from the first gap, the showing up gap, how we show up impacts on how people feel. How we make them feel determines the extent to which they can engage with us. Then we have the expectation gap, which we just went over. It could be, what's expected of me versus what do others people expect from myself? Or what do we expect from others versus what do teams understand what is expected? So when you got all that, hey, we're ready for action, right? Oh, hold on a minute. Sometimes we're showing up and the expectations are clear, and we're still not getting the action. So the action gap, this is my favorite, is the space between what the actions we want people to take and what they're actually doing, right? We want them to do something different. And we're trying to close this gap. And it's like, well, how do we do this? So I've got Jane. Jane is an amazing production supervisor in a steel factory. She's leading her morning meeting, and she hears in the morning meeting, we're going to be lucky to hit 3 today when the target's 5. What's Jane thinking? Oh no, you're going to hit 5. Oh yeah, this is going to happen. That's the usual response. And we talked about this in our coaching sessions. And it's like, well, what if we were a little more curious? So Jane did something different. She paused for a few seconds. And she just kind of thought of, what's a different approach? So she talks to the team member after. She says, when you have hit 5, what's gone well? It's like, well, we certainly didn't run out of parts. Okay. If you didn't run out of parts today, what would you need? Well, these buffers, right? Like these buffers, sometimes we come in here, they're partly empty, and, they're not doing their job over here, and it's like, okay. What could you do in the first hour to impact that? Well, we do have a changeover coming up. Myself and this other gentleman, we're gonna have an extra 5 or 10 minutes, so we could stock up some of those buffers. Totally change the dynamic of conversation. Jane wasn't telling him what to do. He wasn't saying, you got to make sure you hit 5. Make sure you do the dishes. It's just kind of being curious, like, hey man, when it's gone well, what's gone well? What do you need for that? What could you do about that? And often we don't got to come in there and try to solve everything. We just need to have a conversation. People just need a little time to have that deeper conversation, to understand. And we want to understand, we know what to do, and you won't have to tell, because they'll just take action. Because they know it, they believe it, and they'll just do it. It's just having that discipline to have that conversation. Because I get tired of this whole, do we want to connect or command? Because we think about it. Okay, I got to make sure that, in our department that this is getting done. Okay, all right, so I let that person know. Okay, oh, you know what? I'm going to send them an email so they make sure. I'm going to call them the next day and make sure that it is getting done. I wonder if it's getting done. I'm going to go over and see them. Okay. We're going to have an action list, right? So we'll have their name on it and we'll put a date on it. And then we'll have a meeting, because we don't have enough meetings. So let's have a meeting to talk about the action that's maybe not getting done. So it's just exhausting, right? Like you're chasing all this down. So all that time that you spend with that, you could spend on a deeper conversation to understand and making sure that these 3 gaps are closed. That's the fun part about closing these gaps. So I don't know if this has ever happened here. But we're walking around. I got my safety glasses on, right? I'm safe. I just like this one because it doesn't matter usually what industry you're in. This happens, and it could be a conversation. We want to remember that concept. Statements divide us. Questions unite us because we get into a conversation. So this next exercise at your table will take the same amount of time. A teammate is not wearing their safety glasses. You can't tell them to wear their safety glasses. I know you can all do that already. So what we got to do is with the attitude of curiosity, what questions could you ask when you approach someone like this? Coming from curiosity and care. Care of maybe why the person's not wearing them right now, care of maybe is this a repeated problem? What are some questions you come up with? Think of someone at your table to come up and maybe share a couple of those questions. We're going to take 5 minutes. We'll do the same thing. We'll raise our hand after when we're done. Have some fun conversations with your neighbors. All right, thank you. Let's take a couple questions here. Anybody come up with some good questions? Let's hear one right here. All right. Are your glasses comfortable? Fantastic. Not, just it's caring, right? Are your glasses comfortable? You don't have to say what's wrong or what's not. I love that. Next one. Next question. All right. Do you know where your glasses are? Yeah, have a little fun with it, right? Like, do you know where your glasses are? Right? Great conversation starter. What else? Give me one more. One more from this side.
Do you value your eyesight?
Do you value your eyesight? And you can do that, and you can, I could see you saying that, and certain people can ask certain questions. You could probably say that. Do you value your eyesight? And that can create us a great conversation. Kind of, oh yeah. Okay, but then we can talk a little bit after that, right? So I know you do. So what would keep you wearing them more? And that's, sometimes you just need that icebreaker of just like, hey, do you value your eyesight? Do you know where your glasses are? Are these comfortable? Right? Like, who knows? You'd be surprised in what you might get. What I promise you, if you make a statement, you probably won't get much. But any of those 3 questions you just heard, you don't know where it's going to go, right? You don't know how you can transform somebody's thinking to change their behavior, to change the result. That result right there in that conversation can be someone having their eyesight or not, right? Because when we get curious, we ask deeper questions, we get connected on what good looks like. Like, yes, we're going to make more parts if we do this. We're going to have better service. We're going to have better quality of products. But we're also going to have better safety. Because when we're having conversations and you're in a culture, in a company, and you're promoting those deeper questions and you're asking questions as a leader, people are just asking curious questions in general, then all of a sudden, you've got this place where you can challenge the status quo. You don't have to be, afraid of not asking the right question because it's just what we do here. And at Harding Szymanski and Company, they have 5 C's. So many of you in this room know this. And one of your C's is curiosity, right? And I love that. And when I learned that, it's kind of, oh man, I'm so lucky I get to speak here with you all here today because you're practicing it, right? Because why? Because it works, right? It works. That's why you've made it part of your culture. And companies that can do this, you're not going to be leaving, you're not going to be losing the people, because when people feel seen, heard, and valued, they don't leave. And because the people that you don't want there, because some of the companies that aren't doing this, what happens? They stay, and they're not engaged. They're in the 75%, which is a lot worse than leaving. So there's just so much opportunity that you all can have here. Because right now, according to the National Association of Manufacturers, in the US, right now, this year, 2023, there's 800,000 jobs needed. If you had 800,000 trained people for manufacturing, you could fill them today. So that's how important this is. Because yes, we have artificial intelligence, and we have technology, and these spreadsheets are going away, and now we can automate all this. That's all going to continue. It's going to continue to make us competitive. What won't be replaced is our ability to connect. That will never be replaced. So, and this is the skill, the intentional skill that can separate you. All right. Take 3 questions. I got a couple stories. You can tell I love telling stories. I got to wrap up a couple. Let's have 3 questions. Questions or just insights and kind of, did you get curious about anything today? Question?
You're from Canada. What's your favorite hockey team?
That's a hard one because since I grew up in Tillsonburg, my back still aches when I hear that word. There's a song about it because it's a tobacco country. But there's so many Canadians playing for the Detroit Red Wings. Steve Eiserman and Bob Probert and all these guys. So I'm a Wings fan. Most of my friends are Toronto fans. But, you know, I'd love to see a Canadian team win a Stanley Cup soon. Matt?
So give us a little bit more background on what you do. What are you doing these days other than speaking to people like us?
Oh, I'm going to have a good lead into that one here. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to lead right into that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Any more questions about your organization? Yeah, Brent.
So a lot of us now work both directly with each other, but also teams and virtual and all of that. Is there, I mean, obviously connecting and curiosity is so important. Any tips or things that you're seeing or recommending in terms of how we connect when it's a virtual environment in a lot of cases?
When I run a virtual meeting, this may be a little crazy, and I stole this from, so one of my mentors is Brene Brown. A lot of my heart and soul comes from, she's a researcher out of Texas. If you haven't seen her Netflix special, it's fantastic. She's got a ton of books, so I learn a lot from her work. But I stole this one from her, is she'll go around a business meeting and just start with, everybody say one word on how you're feeling today. One word, it's a quick exercise, right? So that's a way you can do that virtually. But it's really just kind of like addressing how are we really feeling? Because to connect with someone, it's like, yeah, I'm trying to connect with my people more, and you know, I've got these virtual, and I don't see people that often, and it's kind of, okay, so then how are you spending that time? Are you diving right into the task? Because I have another keynote that's just on relationships. It's kind of like the foundation of all this. So it's having that curiosity of like, hey, we just stepped into this meeting. Let's recognize that we just stepped into a different situation here. How's everybody doing? Let's settle in for a minute. Just kind of break that ice a little bit. Like, hey, I see you. You know, instead of, okay, we're top of the hour, we're going to start the meeting. Okay, first thing on the agenda. Well, okay, all right, I guess we're going. You know, just taking that few minutes. I walked into the gym the other day. We got a little gym at the bottom of our apartment. And guys on the treadmill there, I said, hey, good morning. And he's like, he looked like right through me. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I still here? Am I gone? You know, like, it's just recognizing, seen, heard, and valued. If we just kind of having that attitude when we start, that's the gold. Thanks, Brant. So, a couple things of what we do here. So this sheet here, I hope that you take this with you. What we've really learned through these talks is that I asked you to write down an initial of somebody that you could be more curious about, someone that maybe you can build a connection with. And we know that if you do something in the next 24 hours, this is going to connect, and you're going to be able to use it a little bit more. That's something, let's say, Trevor, I'm not ready to have that conversation with a person. Then have a conversation with another person about the fact that you can't have that conversation. That's okay. You're having a conversation. You're talking about it. You're saying, hey, I kind of want to ask these questions. But do something with that. So you take this, even just take it back to your workplace and talk to your teammates. Are we curious? Am I being curious? And just trying to talk about some of these questions. I do this in a one-sheeter. You can leave it on your desk. When you scan the barcode, you will be connected to my website. So my website, I recently changed to Manufacturing Greatness because I realized my original company's name, Operations Kickstart, we all don't need a kick, right? We need to connect. That's what we need. So I changed our company name. We're just in the transition of that. So you're going to get 10 more great questions that you can just lay around when you're going to that meeting and thinking, okay, if I got to have that conversation, what other questions can I ask? You also, on once a month, I do a newsletter, comes out, and it just adds, it's my favorite book that I read. And then I have a podcast called Mindfulness Manufacturing. That's free as well. I've been doing it for 4 years, every 2 weeks. I just hit 100 episodes. Woohoo! That was a big deal because it's 4 years, right? And it just took a long time, so pretty happy about that. We've had some amazing guests on there, and it's just more conversations about connecting the top to the shop. So yeah, so whether I'm speaking or whether I'm doing some executive coaching and I'm just helping teams connect the top to the shop. But what's really important is that if I hear back and some people are asking some more questions today and you're all a little curious, and manufacturing and all the different industries continue to grow in Evansville and the surrounding area, it's a good day, right? So the good day is people just changing. And so I just provide these, not selling anything. So this is just all stuff that's just is going to come out no matter what. I hope you can take advantage and have some fun with it. And just stay curious. That's all I would ask today is, can we stay curious? This was just sent to me from a gentleman I was coaching 2 years later. He's on vacation in Puerto Rico. He says, I can't think about this phrase and not think of you. Ran by this. And I just want to leave you. This is my son, Dyson. He came down to Kentucky. So he's still living in Ontario. He's 24 years old. He came down September long weekend. And we had some showing up gaps, right? We had some gaps. But what I'll tell you the difference is that the span of time on how long these gaps last is very short now. Like it can be just a matter of like, hey, Dad, are you angry? I'm like, no, I'm not angry. He says, well, just kind of look on your face when you're acting. It's like, okay, well, good to know. Glad you asked. So, we can dive into that quickly and all of a sudden that gap's closed because it's just more natural for us to have that conversation. It was really hard. It's really hard to learn how to do that, whether it's your coworkers or your kids. But man, like I tell them, I said, I learn as much from you as you think you learn from me. But it's really just because we both own our own gaps, right? Because I know I know I have them. He knows that he has them. So if you can all just kind of like take this today, leave with this, be a little more, think about when you're curious how you're showing up, those deeper conversations you can have, how you can become connected on what good looks like, and then get those results. Are you all a little more curious?